This is a video about the data extraction process concerning articles that are included after screening the full text and that are considered of priority in the tagging process. The first group of questions is about study characteristics. We will be filling these using the example of a fictional study. This is a cross-sectional study in an adult population reporting on depression using a symptom scale. A study design can be longitudinal, cross-sectional, or cross-sectional providing data on multiple time points. The next question refers to the method of recruitment, and you need to describe how the investigators reached out to potential participants and how they invited them to participate in the study. As this can be done by more than one method in the same study, you can choose more than one option among the following: open invitation on a commercial survey website, snowball sampling, or direct invitation to a selected population. In this last category, there should be a distinct set of invited persons that can either accept or deny the invitation. After that, please select the method of collecting information, indicating in which way the participants provided their replies. Then, you need to enter the number of people invited to participate. If the number is not known, then enter NI, which stands for no information. You can use the letters NI for any mandatory field where the information is not reported in the paper. In the number of people assessed, enter the number of questionnaires returned or interviews that got started. If this number is not reported, enter the number of valid questionnaires, or the number of analyzed questionnaires, or the number of questionnaires with complete outcome data. All of these numbers are relevant, and if more than one is presented, choose to report the largest one. The response rate should be a number between 0 and 1. You need to calculate it as the number of eligible people that returned questionnaires out of the number of people that were invited to participate in the study. If this is not given, enter the number of people that returned a valid questionnaire over the number of people invited. Then choose the country where the study was conducted from the list. Choose the option multiple countries if needed, and in the following field you can enter the list of the individual countries. If the study is undertaken in a single country, then use the region city field to specify the narrow geographical location of the study if reported. Then enter the date of the start for data collection. If the exact date is not given, enter the first of the month in which the data collection started. The end of data collection is the last day of the month in which the last data were collected. Information about confinement and lockdown will be extracted from other sources, such as national statistics, so typically you do not have to fill in this field. There is one exception to this. It can be the case that the population studied lives in a very specific region or city with confinement significantly different from the rest of the country. For example, when a whole city, and only this city, is in complete shutdown. Then please put the information, in short form, here. To help your partner who will adjudicate the data extraction, you can also add here the paragraph of the paper where you found this information. Similarly, information about the extent of the epidemic in a certain country at the time of the data collection will be sought from other sources, and you do not have to fill in this field. However, if the paper cites a reference to a study or an official source of information, enter the citation in this field. Please do not enter a verbatim description of the situation of the pandemic, as it often appears in the paper, but only a reference if available. If the study reports information on the prevalence of the condition or symptoms prior to the pandemic and does cite the source where this information could be found, please enter the reference here. Now we have completed the study characteristics, and the last box is to add comments. This is where you should add information to help your partner identify quickly the parts of the paper that are relevant. We will show you an example later. We proceed with information about the population. These data here refer to the total study population and not to possible subgroups that the study might report on. In case of longitudinal studies, the information refers to the study characteristics at baseline or at the first time point. The fields should be self-explanatory. The minimum and maximum age eligible by inclusion criteria, the sample size, the mean or median age, and the standard deviation of the age. For the mean age, you might need to do some small calculations if the distribution of participants in various age groups is presented in the paper. We have created a simple Excel sheet that shall help you with these calculations. After that, you need to enter the minimum and maximum age of the included sample if given. For the following characteristics, you need to report either the proportion or the number of participants, whatever is given in the paper. For example, enter the proportion of female participants if given, and for the number of female participants, enter NI. Similarly, for people with physical or psychiatric conditions and SARS-CoV-2 cases, enter either the number or the ratio, whatever is reported. For information on the number of people with physical condition, search in the article for numbers that refer to people with any serious medical condition or people with condition that requires regular medical treatment. If numbers or proportions are given by condition, extract the number of people with the most common condition. If any of this information is not reported in the paper, you need to enter NI. Then select the ethnicity of study participants, if this is explicitly reported in the paper. Remember, you can always use the comments field to help the adjudicator. The next step is to do the risk of bias assessment. This is, however, covered in another video. Next, we need to record how many subpopulations with outcome data we have. The subgroups we're interested in are only those defined by sex and age groups. We get a reminder that the total study population is on adults from both sexes. If you do not have any subgroups, choose 0 in the drop-down menu. Let us define two sex subgroups, men and women. For each defined subpopulation, please enter their characteristics to the fields that open. Let us add some numbers so we can proceed. Now we need to record the outcome for the total study population and subgroups. In our context, we define as outcome a combination of A, a psychiatric condition, B, the scale or interview used to measure this condition, and C, the time point where the measurement took place. Changing any one of these three parameters will result in a different outcome. As our study has only one time point, the outcome is only defined by the condition and the scale. We first define the measured condition from the drop-down menu. Then we need to choose a scale or an interview from the menu. If the scale reported is not on the list, you can choose Other and enter the name of scale manually. Remember to enter the exact name of the scale as appears in the paper, including version or number of items if mentioned in the name of the scale. Our study reports on repression using the PHQ-9 scale. Now, with that particular combination of condition and scale, we have defined the outcome. That outcome needs to be recorded for the study population and the subpopulations. Let's start with the study population. We enter the sample size and the type of outcome reported, choosing between continuous or binary. For continuous, you need to enter the mean or the median score and a measure of the precision. Choose between different options from the drop-down menu and enter the reported numbers. For binary outcomes, like diagnosis with depression, you need to enter the number of people with that diagnosis. In case a symptom scale is used with threshold to define the number of people with a diagnosis, you need to enter the cutoff threshold as reported in the paper in the field below. If multiple cutoffs are given that represent different levels of symptoms, for example minimal, moderate and severe depression, please take the lowest threshold, which indicates the lowest symptom level of a mental health problem. If diagnosis is achieved via diagnostic interviews or questionnaires, there might not be a distinct cutoff value because the diagnosis is reached through an algorithm. Then enter NI in the cutoff threshold field, and then the following define the group with the diagnosis in terms of severity of the condition. If multiple groups are given that represent different levels of severity in the condition, please take the lowest of them and above. For example, if a paper reports 200 people having no depression, 100 people having minor depression, and 20 people moderate depression, you should record 120 cases diagnosed. Then you proceed by recording the same outcome in the subpopulations. If this outcome is not available in all or some of the subpopulations, then enter NY in the required fields. Then you click Complete Form for another outcome to define a new condition or a new scale for the same condition. Let us now assume that the study reports 2 time points, one before the pandemic and one during the pandemic. Let us define this in the tagging phase, and then we need to define how many time points are presented. Then we need to define one by one the time points when the outcome was recorded. Remember that the 2 different time points define 2 different outcomes. Usually data are not recorded in a single day in time, but over several weeks. Here you need to enter the middle of the interval between start and end outcome collection. For example, our study reports that data were collected in June, so we need to enter the 15th of June as the first time point. If data were collected between June and July, you enter the 1st of July. Then you proceed with the definition of the condition and scale. The recording of the outcome for the study population and subpopulations is as before, with one exception. For the second time point, and beyond, if you have many outcomes, the study might not report the mean outcome, but the change in the outcome compared to a previous time point, for example, time point 1. Let us consider that the pre-pandemic data were collected in June 2017 and the post-pandemic data in July 2020. Let us enter the data for the second time point. The continuous outcome can be recorded as the mean and a precision metric as before, or if this is not reported, as a mean difference between the mean score in July 2020 minus the June 2017. Choose mean difference from the drop-down menu, enter the precision metric, and specify the time point compared to which the change is referring to enter the precision metric. Remember to enter the changes in a consistent manner. Mean of symptom scale in a later time point minus mean of symptom scale in an earlier time point, then you can move to the next outcome. Remember that you can always go back to the outcomes you have already completed by going to the top of the form in the survey queue, and you can edit your responses. Once you have finished entering the data for all outcomes, you can press Submit. You can go back to your forms anytime by going to the links of the survey at the right up corner of the data extraction form. Thank you for volunteering for this project, and we wish you a smooth and easy data extraction experience.